Hello reptile friends and welcome back to my channel. My name is India, aka Anacondraiac, and in today's video I'm going to be talking to you about my favourite topic, snakes! More specifically, the 6 best beginner snakes that I would recommend to someone who has never owned a snake before but is looking to get one as a pet. So let's get started with beginner snake number 1, which is the corn snake. Corn snakes are probably the most widely kept beginner snake, and that is because they have very simple care requirements and stay quite small compared to other snakes. Fully grown adults will range from about 4 to 5.5 feet, but they stay very thin bodied as well. They are not quite as chunky or substantial as a royal python, so if you want a more thinner, lighter snake that is not quite as intimidating as how a ball python can feel when you hold it, then corn snakes might just be the snake breed for you. Juveniles can be kept in a 10 to 20 gallon tank, while adults need at least a 40 gallon. Now if you are considering a pet snake, be aware that corn snakes do live well into their 20s, so make sure that you are prepared to look after your new scaly friend for over 2 decades. Now the only thing that I would consider a downside for corn snakes, especially to a beginner, is how quick they can move. They are very active snakes when they are being handled, compared to something like a ball python, which is happy to just kind of sit on you when it is being held. Corn snakes can move really quickly, so just be aware of that. Especially if the snake is going to be for a child, make sure that any handling time is supervised, because if the corn snake moves too quickly, it would be quite easy for it to slip out of their hands. Now moving on, it's beginner snake number 2, the rosy boa. Now these seem to be really popular as beginner pet snakes due to their docile nature and their small size. Adults grow to between 2 and 3 feet. 2 to 3 foot is definitely a manageable size for a beginner. So if the thought of a large snake is off-putting to you, then maybe a rosy boa would be the snake for you. Juveniles can be kept quite comfortably in a 10 gallon. And adults can live in a minimum of 20 to 30 gallons, although bigger is always better when it comes to tank size. And similar to corn snakes, rosy boas can live for at least 20 years, so make sure you are well prepared to look after your pet for their full lifespan. And now on to snake number 3, the king snake. Now there are so many recognised subspecies of king snake. I'm going to list all of the subspecies right here, but the 2 probably most common ones that you will see around is the Californian king snake and also the Mexican black king snake. So make sure to research in detail the care requirements for the exact king snake that you are getting. Their average lifespans are between 15 and 20 years, which is a little bit lower than corn snakes and rosy boas, which is something to consider. And as snakes go, they do tend to be quite docile. Juveniles can be a bit feisty, but they do tend to calm down with regular handling. Now king snakes can vary in size depending on the subspecies, but some can grow up to 6 foot. Now this will of course depend on which species you get, but juveniles should be fine housed in 10 to 20 gallons. And adults will need at least 40 gallons. I love king snakes. I think they are absolutely gorgeous snakes, and I couldn't recommend them highly enough for beginners. As snakes go, their care requirements are very simple and similar to that of corn snakes. Now the one point that I really do want to mention about king snakes is the fact that they are excellent escape artists. Make sure that your tank is completely snake proof, because if there are any flaws, any holes, they will squeeze through them. I've read too many stories of people's Mexican black king snakes or their Californian king snakes escaping, so please make sure that everything is completely snake proof before you put your snake in its new home. Now we're over halfway, it's on to snake number 4, which is the milk snake, one of my personal favourite snake breeds. Now milk snakes originally get their name because farmers would find them in with their cows and think that the milk snakes were stealing milk from the cows. That's actually not true. In the wild, milk snakes will eat a variety of things, but one important thing to note is they are cannibalistic. They will eat other snakes, so it is so important that you never house milk snakes with other snakes, because chances are the other snake will become lunch for your new milk snake. Their bright coloration makes them really attractive to snake owners, and you can definitely see why. I think they are just stunning. And depending on the subspecies of milk snake that you get, their colorations will be different. Honduran milk snakes are the largest milk snake subspecies, and they can grow between 4 and 6 feet long, whereas smaller species like the Nelson's milk snake average out at about 3 feet. So make sure you have done the research on which milk snake subspecies you want, because subspecies can vary dramatically and they will have slightly different care requirements, such as the size of tank that they need. But generally juveniles should be housed in a 10 to 20 gallon. They should be completely fine in a tank that size, whereas adults are generally going to need a 40 gallon minimum. Like king snakes, they are very quick and are excellent escape artists, so make sure to snake proof the enclosure. They can also be quite defensive as juveniles, but that does tend to improve with regular handling, but that is something to bear in mind. So if you want a really stunning snake, milk snakes might just be the one for you. This is going to be a really long video. And now it's snake number 5, which is another really popular one, the Kenyan sand boa. Now despite their name, Kenyan sand boas shouldn't actually be kept on sand, as this can cause a massive impaction risk when it comes to feeding time. A good substrate option for them is something like aspen, which can hold their tunnels really well and is also low humidity for them. They need a good few inches of substrate in their enclosure for them to tunnel in. They absolutely love to dig and make their tunnels. In fact, when you have a Kenyan sand boa, 99.9% of the time you're not going to see it. It's going to be digging its tunnels somewhere in the substrate and won't be above ground. And they actually don't need a very large vivarium at all. Adults rarely grow longer than 2 feet, and as a result they shouldn't need more than a 20 gallon tank really. If you choose to put them in a bigger enclosure, that's fine, but 20 gallons is definitely the minimum, which is another positive if you don't have much space but you are looking for a pet snake. They are very slow moving snakes, which makes them very easy to handle. They have a wonderful temperament, they are very docile snakes, which is great for beginners, and they are also very, very slow growing. So if the size of a pet snake is really important to you and you want a small snake, I definitely couldn't recommend the Kenyan sand boa highly enough. And we're on to our last snake already. My, hasn't the time just flown by? It is snake number 6, the fan favourite, the ball python. Now ball pythons get their name because they are very shy, and when they are startled, their first reaction isn't to strike but to curl up into a small ball. I really, really love ball pythons. I have my lovely Louis. He is just my little yellow best friend. Now they definitely grow larger than the other snakes on this list. Females can grow in excess of 5 feet, while males tend to stay between 3 and 4 feet long. They are also a lot heavier bodied than the colubrids such as corn snakes and milk snakes, and they can feel a lot chunkier and heavier to hold. Another attractive thing about ball pythons is they come in every colour or morph imaginable. But the difference in price of these morphs is insane. If you just want a normal wild type, that can set you back around £30, whereas if you want a fancier morph, that can set you back a couple of grand definitely. They do also have a longer lifespan compared to other snakes. Many ball pythons live for 30 years or more, so make sure that you are prepared to take on that responsibility. They can be incredibly picky eaters, so you need to really research what to do if your snake stops eating. This can be quite normal behaviour for royal pythons, but you need to be aware of it definitely, as it can be quite alarming for new owners. Now the size of enclosures for ball pythons is a bit of a controversial subject. People say that smaller is better, as larger barren enclosures can make the snake feel very stressed. They like to be in an enclosure where there's lots of places for them to hide and for them to feel safe and secure. But I would suggest a 20 to 40 gallon enclosure for juveniles and then at least a 40 for adults. If you are going down the tub route as I do, 32 litres is good for an adult male, whereas about 40 litres is minimum for a large adult female. Please do your research because it is such a controversial subject. This is just a guideline and what I use for my own ball python, so please do your research as it is such a controversial subject and decide what is best for you and your animal. And that's it for today's video. I really hope this has helped you if you are looking for your first pet snake. You've got some really good choices to think about in this video. And if you do decide that one of these breeds is perfect for you and your new pet snake, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear about you and your new pet. Please give this video a big thumbs up and remember to subscribe and then hit the little bell notification, and then you'll never miss one of my uploads. As always, I will see you next week for another video. Bye guys!